Welcome to the Wisdom from Within podcast, where human stories inspire authentic connection and impactful leadership. My name is Jen Aks, and I am so psyched you're here. Let's get started. I know that I say this all the time, but the guests on this show are just phenomenal. Hannah Sumbera, you've got to listen to her. She's such an inspiration. Oh my gosh, we're talking D1 swimmer, athlete. Went to one of the top schools in our country. Absolutely brilliant, not only on paper, not only on her SAT scores and standardized tests and all the rest, but inside. She lands on Wall Street. She's very successful, and she finds her identity in what she's wearing. It impacts the power of her voice and how she shows up. And now she's got a full-fledged business, Wall Street Women, helping women find their power in this industry and outside, both personally and professionally. She's such an inspiration. She gets raw, she gets real, she shares her deepest stories, and she's just such an awesome human. I'm so excited for you to get to know her. Enjoy, and please listen to the end. Share this episode. You're definitely going to want to. Share a comment. I want to hear everything that you feel after you listen to this. Place one hand on your heart and one hand on your belly, and just closing your eyes for a moment. Just allowing your breath to settle, arriving here, present, connected to you and your purpose and your passion and your inspiration and your service. And just allowing the conversation today to move through you, knowing that someone on the other side is relating and connecting and finding wisdom in your words and your story. It matters, and I'm grateful. So I thank you for being here. And just take a deep breath in and exhaling out. Beautiful. When you're ready, you can open your eyes.
That always helps. Always just brings it back in.
Yeah, why do you think it brings it back in? We, just for the listeners that are arriving here, we did a body set, hand on our body, and closing our eyes before we started the conversation. And I'm curious, I love that you said, you know, it's valuable, right? And it matters. So I'm curious why you had the reaction you did. Yeah.
Of course. And going back to our session on Friday, I think that a lot of us struggle with, again, having a million thoughts all at once, and it feels like you can be spread very, very thin. And in a way, you're not fully present in your body. And that's something that I struggle with. And sometimes it's like it's not pleasant because you're thinking about this and overthinking that and worrying about this and all of that. But in reality, the present moment is here and it's okay. And I think that bringing yourself back to where you are right now in this second and just kind of
Right.
like remembering like it's going to be okay. Like I'm here right now and there's nothing I can do about some of these other things.
Yeah.
It's a really good reminder. And I think that, closing your eyes and just kind of feeling that center and bringing that energy back to your center, it's a very comforting thing. And it's a way to reel in your peace.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Do you have a practice to do that in the work that you do, in the busy life that you have, which we're definitely getting into? And by the way, this woman is phenomenal.
Oh.
I can't wait for you to hear her life, her journey. Wow. Division I athlete, Wall Street, bad ass. And now doing what you're doing, like the journey, the bridge you walked, empowering so many women to be themselves, to stand in their power, to wear what they want to wear, to act the way they feel, to believe in themselves, to trust their gut. Wow, all the things. And before we get into that, I want to know, going back to this present moment of
Mhm.
now, here and now. I love that word now because that's all we have. That's all we
Right.
have is right now. We don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. So, with someone like you who's holding so much and doing so much, how do you practice that now presence?
I'm not gonna lie, it was very, very hard, especially given the nature of social media. There is no off button. So
Yeah.
it's so easy to pick up your phone and scroll and look and this and that and post, and you never really feel like it's ever off.
Mm,
And I think the hard part too is a lot of people have social media for pleasure. And so mine is mixed with business. So it's never fully there for enjoyment per se, even though I do
mhm,
love what I do, but there's always an aspect of being productive and like posting certain things and looking at metrics and all of these. And so I had a
mm,
really hard time turning it off. I used to be a very big reader. I used to be a swimmer. And of course, in swimming, it's just you in the water. And so my whole life, I had this sense of grounding, and it was just always
mm,
me alone in my thoughts. And that was
wow,
always my own time.
mm,
And given living in New York, I love the energy. I love everything about the city. But you step out the door, you're surrounded by hundreds of people, hundreds of sounds, hundreds of notifications, online, all of this. And I realized I was overstimulated. And so,
mm,
something actually within the past few months post my breakup that I really got myself back into was meditation. And it was
mhm,
really difficult at first because the thought of me laying still for 20 or 30 or 40 minutes without my phone, like with my thoughts in the middle of the day or in the morning, like it made me itch a little bit. I was like always kind of looking for reasons to avoid it because I'm like, we're used to this instant dopamine, instant, instant, instant. And
yeah,
I had gotten away from these things that had grounded me so much in the past.
mhm,
And so I remember I started doing it, and I would feel so good afterwards, and I'm like, "Huh, okay, I feel really good." Like this was like a little reset. Like it's complete energetic reset. It brings you back into your body. It quiets your mind. It was like this thing that I was missing that I didn't know. And so every time I made myself do it, it got easier and easier and easier to the point where I literally crave it every single day.
wow,
And I can tell when I'm uncentered, when I'm anxious, when I'm panicking, when I'm too busy, when I'm overwhelmed. And I like try and find 20 minutes to
mm,
lay down on the couch, on my bed, whatever, in all of my clothes, whatever, my makeup, and just take that time for me and breathe and really focus on the energy because meditation is about moving your energy. And so when we had our practice on Friday and you really talked about the body movements and bringing the energy back to you, it
mm,
was almost like a form of meditation, but
yeah.
like that you can kind of spread throughout your day. So that's the long story of what I do to kind of ground and center myself in
That's
today's
amazing.
today's
Yeah,
life.
in today's life. Okay.
Yes.
So many things. First, I just will mention Hannah and I did something the other day. I came into her community, which is stunning and amazing and so inspiring, and you must check her out. Um, and I did the power of gesture, which is part meditation. We use visualization, music, and our hands. And
Mhm.
it's science based. There's connection between the brain and the hands. And the reason you felt what you felt is because there is this neurological component. There is this relationship. The hands have that power to kind of calm us and put us into that meditative state and allow us to embody the energy as well. So we're moving, but just with our hands, so it doesn't just stay in the mind, it actually moves through the body. And then so much happens from there. I'm curious, when you meditate, what does that look like for you? Before our session, I can't imagine you were using your hands, or maybe you were. It sounds like you would find a quiet place to relax and chill somewhere.
Mhm.
And so I'm just curious about what that's like for you and how you do that. And do you ever
Mhm.
like fall asleep because you're lying down? Or yeah, tell us a little bit about it more detailed.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. So I'm a huge Joe Dispenza fan. I've listened to some
Mm.
of his audiobooks. He has several different guided meditations. So I
Mhm,
feel like
mhm.
that's very helpful because it walks you through pretty much like,
Right.
your everyday conscious active mind into this more meditative state and things that
Mhm.
you should focus on. And the one that I really love doing, it's a guided morning meditation, even though I kind of do it throughout the day as needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I personally love doing it in the middle of the day or before I go to bed because before you go to bed, you're in a different brain wavelength
Mm.
that like what you think about actually it's like on a different energetic level. And so it almost is more like manifestation sort of vibes. Like you
Mm,
can almost
yeah.
reset your brain.
Mm,
And so he guides you through focusing on the energy like between your ears in the room and then your throat in the room and like different
mm,
parts of your body. So there isn't
interesting.
movement, but
Yes.
you are aware of the energy moving through your body and around your body. And so then you can
Okay.
almost and you can almost kind of tap into that and really feel it, which is crazy. And it's taken me a while, but I can feel my vibration, my internal vibration raise throughout the
Yes.
course of the meditation, but it's intentional. Like I think about doing it. So it's not like I just lay there and like doze off or I lay there and like
Yeah.
zone out. It's
Right.
more of a conscious thing. And I think about
Right.
maybe things that I'm working towards or things that, I want to let go of
Mm,
and things that, I would like to happen. And it's just like a very positive
yeah.
reinforcement
Yeah.
energetically, but also it brings you into this state where like those things can happen. So that's
Mm,
what I do. So
yeah.
I've never fallen asleep. I will say though, I'm not much of a napper at all. I can barely nap. So maybe that's why.
Right, 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 right. Oh,
But
okay. I love, love, love that. So we definitely want to try and maybe drop that in the show notes because that sounds like a great meditation. I know people are always
of
looking for
course.
new things to do. So now tell us about I find your journey so interesting, and I think our listeners are just gonna get so much from you because the steps you've taken, the choices you've made, the detours in the right direction, they all really took a lot of courage, and you've made a lot of shifts, and you're empowering a lot of people. So I would love for you to just talk about your journey a little bit and what led you. Like this podcast really is focused so much on the wisdom from within, that
Hmm.
intelligence that guides us. And sometimes we ignore it and sometimes we trust it. And this is all about helping people really learn how to trust it and be inspired to trust it because when you do, it can lead you to success like you're having. So that's really the goal and the lens that I want to look through. So, yeah, can you speak to us about you?
Of course, happy to do that. I'm so excited to be here. And, I think something that you had mentioned earlier on, I was a D1 athlete. So I had swam competitively since I was the age of 8 years old.
Mm,
And I had tried every sport. It was one of those things where my parents were trying to figure out, like, okay, she needs a hobby, she needs something to do. I tried probably 15 sports and I was terrible at everything. And swimming was the one thing that
mm,
I turned out to be pretty good at.
mm.
And I remember one day I was walking from my safety like swim lesson with my mom and I pointed to the lap pool and I was like, I want to do that. And she looked at me and she's like, are you sure? That doesn't look very fun, but if you want,
Wow.
I'll sign you up. And so I remember she signed me up for my first swim team class.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
I was like, this is what I want to do. And I was really, talented for somebody who had never done that before. A lot of these kids start when they're 4 years old.
Mm,
And so it felt right to me. And I was like, wow, when you find something that you're good at,
yeah.
it's almost like this identity shift. And you kind of
Mm,
build this perception of yourself around that.
mm,
And so when I found this, I was like, this is who I am. And so it became a huge part of my life. I was always Hannah the swimmer. We'd go to swim meets. I'd swim every day after school. And being one of the better ones for my age group on my team, you get a sense of accomplishment from that because you're like, this is my thing. Like it gives you that fulfillment. I love to
right,
swim.
right.
And, at school, I was always a little bit on the nerdier side. I loved books. I loved this and that. And so swimming was really where I felt like I had fit in.
Mm,
And so, fast forward, I ended up getting recruited for college. And at this point, I knew that I wasn't going to do professional swimming. I knew that I was going to take it as far as I could in college and get a degree and like do all the things and really focus on my corporate career after that.
mhm.
And so I ended up getting scholarships from Vanderbilt, Rice. I had offers from Princeton, Brown, all of those schools. And so it was like a very like, wow, I'm so blessed to be able to do what I'm doing and like have
Yes,
offers to take it to the next level.
incredible.
And I had remembered, I love my parents. They were always like, you can't get a history degree. You need to get something that's going to pay your bills because they were
Right,
always very empowering. They were always very much
right.
like, if you want something, you can do it. So we were a very big chore household. Like, okay, if you want that, you got to do your chores, save up your money. We're not going to just give you the credit card. So
Right, right, right.
I think from a very young age, I was always taught to like go after what you want. Like if
Yeah.
somebody else can do it, you can do it too. And that was one
Mm,
of the things that I loved about swimming because it was up to me. Swimming
yeah.
is you're on a team, but it's a very individual sport. So you
Right.
really have to rely on yourself.
Yeah.
So I always knew that like, okay, if I work really hard, I'm going to make my goals. Like it's not up
Yeah.
to anybody else. It's fully
Yeah.
like full accountability on me.
Love it.
And so that transferred into, school and that transferred into swimming. I ended up going to Rice and I decided to do political science thinking I wanted to be a lawyer. And I did get into Rice not only through academics, I was strong academically, but also through my sport
Mhm,
because,
mhm, mhm.
I had decided, yeah, I could go to a bigger school and just be on the swim team and do that. But like, I want to go to a school where I maximize my academics as well. And maybe I
Mhm,
wouldn't have gotten in on my own just
mhm.
academically. So this was something that was almost like a payoff for all of my hours swimming
Yeah, yeah.
and dedicating myself to my sport. So
Love it.
I went to Rice, and this is where I started having more of an identity shift. And
Mm,
maybe this is where, I started having a crisis. And so at school, I went to a big public high school of 4,000 kids, and I was in all of the AP, like the honors classes, and I was always very confident and outgoing and uh, never afraid to really put myself out there because I had positive reinforcement of like, oh, I'm going to raise my hand. I'm pretty sure my answer is good. And like the teacher's going to say so, or
wow.
nobody's going to judge me. Or I had this
Amazing.
self confidence
Yeah.
that disappeared when I went to Rice because
Wow.
not only is it the highest caliber people of all the country, right? Like the professors are, extremely tough and they had this disdain towards athletes in a way because they had this belief they don't deserve to be there.
Right,
They didn't get
right,
in on their
right.
own, which
Mm,
is incredibly harmful to all of the student
yes.
athletes
Wow, they
at
made
these
that known?
schools.
Like, you could really feel that?
Oh, it was terrible. And I actually will say it was worse towards like the football and baseball team and all of
Yeah,
that, but
yeah,
like
yeah.
the swim team had the highest GPA. The women on our team were like doctors, pre-med, stats majors, biochemists, like insanely smart 4.0s, and we still dealt with this weird sort of judgment. And it was almost there before we even got to prove ourselves, which you walk in and you have no idea. And then it starts to dawn on you. When I started raising my hands as a freshman and started getting the professor would look at me and kind of give me a look and be like, okay, does anybody else have an answer? Or things that
Right,
slowly
right, right,
chipped
right.
away. And
Yeah.
I was like
Mm,
scarred. And I
yes.
had thoughts like, I'm not, that was so mortifying.
Oh,
I'm never going to raise my hand. And then, of course, somebody else would follow up with like some insane encyclopedia answer. And I
right.
was like, I must be the dumbest person in this room.
Oh,
And so
that
it was
hurts my heart.
really, yeah,
Yeah.
it was like kind of
Mm,
traumatizing. And I
yeah.
had this lack of confidence. And, you know, I, I was great at my event on the swim team. So I had my event that I was pretty much the best at. And so I was like, okay, I have my identity in this, but like my school identity has been stripped away essentially. And
Right.
I remember when I was in public speaking classes or communication classes, I started having like full blown anxiety attacks before I would have to present. And that had never happened before.
Mm.
I am a very expressive person. As you know, I also love to use my hands. Like to use my facial expressions. That's always how I've been, who I've been. And in
Yes.
college, that
Wow.
got stripped away. And I
Mm,
remember I'd be as stiff as a board. And if I moved my hands, they would start shaking. And
right.
so then I would
Oh,
keep them glued to my side and I would just try and memorize everything and get
oh
through
my God.
everything I needed to as fast as I needed to.
Wow.
And I remember I had an Apple Watch and my heart rate, it would show that I was working out. It would be like you're in like the red zone of working out before
Oh
any
my
time I
gosh.
presented. Yes. And
Oh,
so I didn't have my
right.
ability to express and kind of be who I was and shift this energy. So I had this nervous, panicky energy, and it
Yeah.
really reinforced it because then
Yes,
I'd
of
have a
course.
bad presentation. And I'm
Of
like, oh
course.
my gosh,
Of
it's
course.
true. Like, I'm so bad
Right.
at this.
Mm,
And it was a negative feedback cycle.
right,
And
right,
so
right.
eventually, I moved into the corporate world and I did well with interviews, but then, I started working in private equity on the investor relations team. And a big part of that is being able to pitch your
Yeah.
firm to investors. And so there's a huge presentation aspect that goes with that. And I remember when I first started out, I was so nervous. And obviously, as an analyst, it wasn't like I'm going in front of these big, directors of research at pension funds or endowments. So I had this like blanket of safety of like, okay, they're not going to ask me. I'm the youngest one. I'm the analyst. Like I have time to learn everything.
Right.
And I remember there would be points when I needed to say something or speak in the meeting, and I would just be repeating it in my head over and over and over and over again until I'd have to say what I needed to say.
Right.
And it was petrifying. And I
Oh,
remember I moved to a new firm as an associate. So I started moving my way up. And I remember asking my managing director, like one of the partners, how do you not get nervous when you present? How
right.
do you do it? Because you're
Yeah.
going in front of these pretty much leaders in
Right.
finance
Right.
all over the world, people that are in
Right.
charge of billions of dollars.
Right.
Your firm hinges on that. Like, how do you
Right.
not get nervous? I would
Okay.
I was petrified even thinking of that. And he told me, obviously he's 60, and he's like, you know, it took me a while, but I realized that the people in the crowd listening to me did not know anything or any more about the topic that I was presenting on than I did. So nobody was really going to be able to point out like, oh, he missed a sentence here, or he missed
Mm.
a point on this or that.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, in a way, you're telling this story to them and they don't know how this story is going to end. So there's really no judgment. It's really kind of up to you. And you just can't let it get in your head. Like their mothers, their daughters, their sons, their cousins, their uncles at the end of the day, dealing with real problems, listening to you present. It's just he just kind of like made it seem more of a normal thing instead of this
Yeah.
monumental
Yeah.
anxiety driven event that I had always thought these things were. And so
We need more people
that
like him. Yeah.
yeah, and that kind of started shifting my perspective, and I'm like, okay, these are people at the end of the day. Like they're not some monsters. They're not super judgmental. They're just at the end of the day paying their bills, doing their job, and they're like me.
Right.
And so I started slowly putting myself out there more and more, and I had really supportive bosses. And one of the things that helped me with that was looking my best and feeling my
Here
best.
we
And
go,
yeah,
ladies and men. Listen to this part. I know it's getting juicy now. Okay.
yes. And so I had again when I graduated and I stopped swimming, I had lost that form of identity and that form
Mm,
of expression.
right. Right. Right.
And there was about a year or two where I was pretty depressed because I didn't
Mm,
know who I was and I didn't know
mm-hmm.
how to show who I was because swimming had always done that for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'd always been Hannah the swimmer, Hannah who swam at Rice, Hannah who did this. And I remember being like, wow, is this what the rest of my life is going to look like when I started my first corporate job? Just thinking like, I'm so unhappy. I'm, working from home post COVID in workout clothes. Like this is so depressing. And so I remember when I got my investor relations job and I started going into the office, I was like, wait, this is fun because I can express myself through what I wear. And that's
Mm,
people's first impression of me. And so if I look the part and I dress the part and I act the part, I become the part. And not only do
mm.
I become the part, not only do I show myself that I am the part, but other people started to treat me as such too. So
Right.
if you show up for how you want people to perceive and treat you, not only do they treat you that way, but like you believe in yourself and you reel it
Right.
back into who you
Yes.
actually are.
I love
No
that.
matter if that
Mm-hmm.
is, somebody who's wearing pinstripe suits every single day and that's what makes them happy and feel like their best, most polished version of themselves to do what they need to do at work. Great. I realized for me, I loved colors. I loved doing my makeup and making my hair done and presenting myself very polished because that's deep down, that's who I am as a person. And that's what makes me
Mm.
happy. And that's what makes me
Yes.
feel my most
Mm.
authentic, whether I'm in the office or outside of the office. So instead
Mm-hmm.
of having my colorful, fun, tailored wardrobe that I had for outside of work, I started to bring that inside of my work wardrobe.
Mm.
And so I started to play around with it a little bit. And most of my firms have been all men. So, they're wearing their navy suits, they're wearing their black suits. So there's not a lot of variety that
Color.
goes on there, not a lot of color.
Mm-hmm.
And I started deciding I'm going to wear dresses. I'm going to wear skirts. Obviously, everything, dress code appropriate, very professional. But there's so many different ways that you can get creative and play around with it. And so I remember I started really getting enjoyment of like, oh, I'm going to wear this to this presentation today, or I'm going to wear this to
Mm-hmm.
this meeting. I'm going to get it tailored. I'm going to, make sure I feel the part so that
Love it.
I can show up as the most authentic version of myself that is the part. And
Right.
so that really helped with that imposter syndrome, because so many of us think to fit in, no matter if it's a job, a friend group, or whatever, that you have to be like everybody else to fit in. But
Hmm.
reality, it's the opposite, because if you're
Yeah.
trying to be like everybody else, you're not your most authentic.
Right.
Therefore, it's never going to be a fit. And if it
Right.
is a fit when you're trying to be everybody else, chances are you're doing the wrong thing or you're with the wrong people, because you're not being true to who you are and you're trying to be
Hmm.
somebody else to get whatever result.
Right.
And so I started really doing that. And that is one of the reasons why I started posting online. It was a creative
Mm.
outlet. I had
Yeah.
started dressing for myself, a few years ago, and I really thought it was great. Like, I had other coworkers too who would be like, "Hey, where'd you get that skirt, or where'd you get those shoes?" And it was something I enjoy talking about. I'd be like, yeah, they're great quality, they're comfortable for the train, super great, whatever. And so it became this thing. And I started getting friends reaching out to me. And, I was like, wow, okay, maybe I'm not so bad at this. And
Oh
I would
my
tell
gosh.
and I would
Okay.
tell them, I'm like, I got it on sale here, or they have it here, or whatever. And I was always like a very much like bargain hunter, because I hated for paying for things full price, right? And so I'm
Yeah.
like, well,
Yeah.
and so I'd always put my friends on. And I remember I started posting online with no expectation, just like, hey, this is another creative outlet for me. I obviously love my job, but I still felt like there was a little something missing. I had gotten closer to who I was in a more genuine version of myself through, how I put myself together and how I present myself. But I also wanted to help others in a way, or like
Yeah.
show people like,
Yeah.
hey, like, I do
You
this,
can
you
do
can
it
do this
too.
too.
Yeah.
And so I remember I started filming like days in my life working in private equity, and I would think about my outfit the day before. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to wear this for this video. And it would
So
be like
fun.
it was such an exciting thing. And it started to really take off. And I was like, people are interested in this? Like, this is crazy. I
Okay.
had no
That's
idea anybody was
unbelievable.
watching my videos, right? Like, it was
Right.
crazy.
Right. Right.
And then people started asking, like, hey, where did you get this? Where did you get that? Like, can you start doing like corporate outfit recs? And I was like,
Oh,
of course. I love that. And, that's
wow.
kind of how it took off. And really, again, I had no idea that it was going to be a full-time thing. For the time being, I was getting this huge sense of purpose through the scalability of connecting with people. I realized what I love to do is I love to connect with people. And that was the
Right.
aspect of my fundraising investor relations jobs that I loved. I was very front facing. I was talking to people. I was connecting and making connections and all of the things, bringing people together.
Mm.
I realized I could do that on a large scale on social media. And that was the turning point for me, because I was like, not only can I show people how to be confident or things that have worked for me, maybe it'll help somebody, I don't know, but I can show them like my journey, what I did. And if I can do it, you definitely can do it too. And like, don't let other people's box that they put you in affect how you should show up for you. Because at the end of the day, if wearing a navy suit makes you happy to work, great. And if it doesn't,
Hmm.
why are you doing it?
Right.
At the end of the day.
Exactly. At the end of the day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
at the
because
end of
it's
the day.
all at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That should be the name of this thing. At the end of the day. Because, right, and I know that you would agree, if we're in our highest energy, if we're in that joy and we're in that bliss and then we attract. We attract the right things. We attract the
Yep.
right people and we serve at a much higher level. Wouldn't you
Mm-hmm.
agree with that?
100%.
Yeah.
And that's when my personal self-doubt started to melt away, actually.
Mm. Mm.
And it's crazy, because when I started moving into that more authentic version of myself, and I noticed that I felt more comfortable speaking up, or,
Yeah.
walking into a room and putting my shoulders back and,
Yeah.
having conviction in what I was saying, and people started reacting as such.
Yes.
And that's how I changed that negative feedback cycle in my head that I had in college to wait a second, I reversed the wheel and then it was positive and positive. And then it just became more, 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 more to the point where I felt comfortable enough to start posting on social media, knowing that friends, coworkers, people were going to see it and judge me. And I got to the point where I was like, I don't really care. I don't care because
Yes.
this is something that makes me
Mm.
happy. And if it helps at least one other person, that's great. And that makes me happy.
Yeah, there's so many things here. I love the natural journey of all of this. I love the organic flow. Like, I'm gonna do this. I don't even know. You were surprised when people started showing up and
Hmm.
inquiring and asking. It wasn't like you were reaching for that celebrity, that you were reaching for something. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about anything. It was just you showing up as you, and your journey led you to that. Everything in your life led you to that. What a foundation you had, and what great parents you had, and the swimming and this theme of identity. I think is very interesting for you, and I think so many people, including myself, can definitely relate, just that our identity shifts throughout time, and it can be a positive shift. We don't have to look at something as a loss necessarily, but more as a detour in the right direction or a shift in the right direction.
Hmm.
Because as a swimmer, that feeling, and that I love your whole piece about the swimming and how you were alone in your thoughts, and that was your safe space, but that was your
Hmm.
identity. And then how that shifted, and then you became more open and raising your hand, and it became more than just you. So the evolution is just so incredibly beautiful. I want to give you an opportunity to just speak about that identity piece, because I think that's really, really huge, especially in your story and how many you've shifted into.
Hmm. So I think identity comes from what other people and the world perceives you as. And
Mhm.
so when we're good at something, whether it's a sport or whether it's academics or you have a talent or whatever, that almost molds how other people see you, but how you see yourself.
Mm.
And I think that when I lost my original identity, I didn't know who I was. Like,
Mm.
I didn't know what made me happy. Swimming, I had always gotten a sense of accomplishment after a good race, after, a good swim meet or a tournament, or I hit my goal that I wanted to hit that I was working towards. And I lost that when I stopped swimming. And I think that corporate, you can set goals for yourself, but there's a very set structure in a way. So for example, you can work as hard as you can as an analyst. You're never going to be a vice president in a year. You're never going to be a managing director in a year. Like, it doesn't matter, right? And
Mhm.
so there are certain things where there's almost less of a limit. And then when you move into the corporate world, there's a structure that kind of keeps you
Mhm.
in place. And
Right.
so I had this almost loss of ambition because I was like,
Yeah.
doesn't matter how many hours this week I work, my
Right.
pay's staying the same at the end of the year and
Right.
probably for the next couple of years. Like,
Right.
it
Right.
doesn't matter
Right.
how much of myself that I dedicate into
Yeah.
this or how much I lose or sacrifice, I'm not getting an equal return. And
Mm.
so that was really hard for me to
Yeah.
grasp because
Yeah.
my whole life I had this correlation of school, you work hard, you get better grades, right? It's
Right.
it's positive. Same thing
Yes.
with swimming.
It's an
You work
upward
hard.
climb and success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's up
Mhm.
to you. And
Right.
so when you move into
Mhm.
this corporate world, it's not up to you anymore. Of course, like to an extent, you want to be a good employee and do your best, but
Right.
like after that, there's nothing really that
Right.
will show for that
Yeah.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
And I think that that was what almost had caused me this like depression because I was like, this is the rest of my life. Like, I'm not doing anything for me anymore. Swimming, I was
Right.
doing for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was one of those things that my parents never forced me to. My dad didn't even know my events until I graduated. He was always like, "Great job, sweetheart. Like, you did so good." And he'd be like filming the wrong swimmer. And I'm like, "Dad, that wasn't even me." And he was just always, my parents were always supportive. It was never like, you have to do this. So I
Right.
did it for myself, which
Yeah.
is why I think that I loved it and I had my level of success that I did. And
Yeah.
so when I started social media, I was doing it for myself.
Yeah.
And I didn't
Clearly.
know that it would become an identity or this or that. And I still wasn't fully sure of this identity, even though I had started wearing what I wanted to wear and kind of becoming who I wanted to become. I still wasn't fully certain. And I
Right.
think that by putting myself out there and exposing myself and opening myself up to all of these different people and, places and things and
Yeah. Yeah.
judgment too,
Yeah.
it really made me sure of who I was and who I wasn't.
Yeah.
And in a way, it unexpectedly helped me figure out like what makes me happy, what's my passion, and what's my identity and what's my purpose.
Well, what's interesting about all of this too is I think many of us, and I too, I think we're all kind of guilty of that comparison, right? Where we might look at someone like you, someone might be listening to this and saying, oh, well, I want to do that. And I want to find that level of happiness and freedom and identity that I feel aligned with. And I will say, I know this to be true, that whatever season you're in, anyone, is exactly right. This is what I believe is so true, that no matter what is happening in the chapter of your life that you're in, whether you're having a lot of sadness or that depression, or you're feeling anxious or you're not happy, knowing that that is a building block. That is a building block to get to the ultimate happiness. And I think that's
Mhm.
really important because on social media and listening to podcasts like this, we look at success and go, I want that. I just want to get to that, as opposed to going back to like the original theme that we spoke about in this podcast is the now,
Yep.
here and now. And I'm guilty of this too. I want certain things and I'm not there yet, personal, professional, whatever it is. And I'm always in that state of return to the present, choosing love, not fear, holding on to the body with the power of gesture that I created, to physically hold on to the body and use the gestures to reconnect and remember and not never question. So I just think it's really important that we all remember that we are where we are and to use wherever we are as that stepping stone, as that opportunity to learn what it is we want to do and what it is we don't want to do. You know what I'm saying?
100%.
Yeah.
I had no idea, and I agree with your point, like, if you would have told me a year ago I would be doing social media full time, I'd probably laugh at you. There was a time maybe 2 or 3 years ago where I remember where I was like, "Wow, I would love to do that. I would love to post online, and I would love to do that full time," and I remember I had tried once, but it was like a very half-hearted attempt, and I was like, "Oh, no, I'm not gonna do that." And part of it is you get in your own way.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing to getting what you eventually want in life is to not get in your own way, but to be present and to take the steps that scare you. And
Yeah.
my biggest thing is growth happens when you're uncomfortable.
What's the most
And
uncomfortable you've been in? Like, what if you could name one moment where you're like, "Okay, this feels fucking hard. I'm scared out of my mind," but you did it anyway? Can you think of that
yeah,
moment?
I can give you professional and personal. So obviously
Okay.
personal was when I started posting online and I'm like, I'm gonna have friends and family and judge because everybody hates to be seen trying, right?
Right.
Everybody just wants the success.
Right.
Nobody wants to be seen trying because
In
there's
the
always a
process.
chance of
Yeah.
failure. And
Right.
so you're afraid of that judgment. And so once I put that behind me and I'm like, this could go terribly wrong. This could be so embarrassing. This could be whatever. I was like, I'm going to do it. And so that was very scary and it was uncomfortable. And to film myself in public is
Right.
also
Yeah.
it was very uncomfortable because people look at you and they laugh
Right.
and they're like, oh my gosh, what is this girl doing? Like, that's
Yeah.
so embarrassing. But
Right.
deep down, people wish they had the confidence to be able
Yeah.
to do that.
That's true.
And so that's what I shifted because I'm like, okay, great. Like, do these people really have any control over my life? Do they affect my paycheck? Do they affect my happiness? Like, any of that? And the answer is no. So I'm like, why am I going to give them the power to limit me doing something that I want to do? And
I'm
then
gonna
back
chime in
to,
real quick.
uh-huh,
Don't forget your second point, but I wanna you got it?
yeah.
Okay. But I wanna just chime in here and say, what I think you're doing is not only overcoming that, like, thought process around what are people thinking and, "Oh, they're gonna laugh." You're really doing an act of service, not just your work, which is, of course, of service, but by actually doing the process of your work, because you are right that most people wanna have that confidence and that give themselves permission to be messy and silly and take a chance, and it's really hard, and I
Hmm.
understand that. I work a lot with those people, and I get it, and I was one of those people one time as well. But you're just being out there on the streets and putting yourself out there and recording and doing your social, that is an act of service because you're really showing people, hey, you know, if I can do it, you can do it too. And they look at you and say, wow. And maybe something lights up inside of them. And then privately they start trying it. And then publicly it'll come out eventually. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. Yeah.
Thank you. But yeah, and I
Yes.
agree with that. And that's also what I would hope. I hope
Right.
somebody sees like, oh, if she can film herself doing this, like so
Right.
can I,
So can I.
no matter
Exactly.
what
Yeah.
it's about, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then
You
back
had
to
that other point.
the professional thing. Yeah, I
Right.
remember I just started a new job. It was I was still pretty young and I had to pitch our firm, but it was unexpected. And the CEO came into my office and he's like, yeah, it's time for you to present to me and the other partners. And I remember shaking. I had just gotten my coffee. I was having that anxiety. I was shaking. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just started. I feel like I don't know anything. And I had to change my thought. I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna do this, like, I don't have a choice. I have to go in there and I'm gonna do my best." And, like, you know what? The first time I do, it's gonna be hard, but then every time
Mhm.
after that, it's gonna be a little easier. And so I remember I went in his office and I did my pitch and I presented and it went well. And he was like, "That was great. We're ready to put you in front of investors. We're ready to put you, send you to
Wow.
conferences." And I remember being scared, like scared out of my pants. I'm like, oh my gosh, they know the firm better than anybody else. So this time, like, I can't mess up because they know exactly what I'm pitching. And, you just sometimes have to dive into
Wow.
the deep end. And there's this
Yeah,
saying that I love.
totally.
And it's about leaning in. So you can run away from discomfort, pain, all of this stuff, right? Or you can lean in. And so when I get to these points, I'm like, you know what? Going in head first. I'm going to lean in and it's going to be uncomfortable, but it's going to be okay. And so I will just go all in, lean into the
Mm,
pain, lean into the uncomfort. Don't run away from it, right? Like, because we
yes.
have this thing of running away from fear, discomfort, and what that's not where growth happens. And that's why people stay unhappy or they have these, oh, I wish I could do that, or I wish I could do this. And
Mhm.
it's up to you to be able to just like put on your hard cap and like do it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, and it's not as hard as we think. It really
Hmm.
does come down to choice, and I know the choice can be uncomfortable. It's everything we've talked about. It's that discomfort, but that is where the growth happens, like you said, and it is where the love expands, and it is where the service within ourselves flourishes for others. So, I'm all about that. Wow, 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 what an incredible, amazing conversation with you. I'm so happy that you're here talking to me and to all of the listeners. Tell us, like, how do people get to know you? How do people find out more about what you're doing? Give us the scoop.
Yeah, so I have social media accounts. I'm on Instagram and TikTok under Wall Street Wardrobe. I also run an international women's community, which is now my full-time passion, my full-time thing. I love it. And my favorite part is being surrounded by so many amazing women from all
Mm,
over the world, different careers, different cities. Because one of the things that I had felt when I was in corporate was that I felt very alone. And so aside from the whole identity crisis and, the wardrobe and all of that, I was one of the only women in the room pretty much at all times. And on top of that, I was also the youngest one. So I was navigating two different aspects of that by myself. And at times
mm,
it felt lonely. And I remember something in me changed when I went to a women's conference and I realized the energy is so different, the connection, the community. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love my male coworkers. They're great. But there's something being surrounded by people that get it, that understand, that have gone through similar things. And it really, again, it doesn't matter the industry. We go through the same things in finance as women do in law or medicine. And a lot of the times, it's not talked about enough. And so I
yeah.
created Wall Street Women as this community where we do meetups. We have wonderful guest speakers like Jen on Friday to help navigate like the things that we go through collectively, not only in the workplace, but outside of the workplace. Because again, life is not all work, right? Like in your personal life affects your professional life, quite frankly. And
Mhm,
so
mhm,
having
mhm.
that sense of connection and that I'm not alone and I have a mentor, I have somebody who's gone through this. It's like a safe feeling. And so that's the wonderful thing about the community that we've created. So we
Mm,
have Wall Street Women Group on Instagram, we have a website, a LinkedIn, And I'm also on YouTube under Wall Street Wardrobe. And so that's a little bit more of my personal, like unserious life. And everything
I
else is on
love it.
Instagram though.
Oh my God. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I so appreciate you. And I love that not only the title, but the subtitle of this podcast, the Wisdom from Within podcast, where human stories awaken the leader from within, right? Inner leadership. And that is what you are such an example of. You really allowed
Yeah.
that wisdom to emerge. And not only did it emerge, you trusted it and you allowed it to lead your life. And now you're doing what you're doing. And so I'm so grateful to you. Thank you for being here. I'll see everyone next week on Wisdom from Within. Take care.
Thank you so much, Jen.
You're so
Bye.
welcome. If something in this conversation spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Send it to someone who might need that message too. You can also send me a comment because I would love to know what it is that landed for you. But most importantly, take a moment to pause and listen to what it is that resonated, because that's where your real guidance system lives. The one you can trust, the one you can rely on. See you next week.